Inflation is one of those words we hear everywhere, on the news, at the grocery store, and in conversations about money. But few people truly understand what's driving it. Why do prices keep rising even when salaries don't? Is inflation caused by government decisions, global events, or something deeper in the economy itself? In this video, we'll break down what really causes inflation in a clear, simple way. No confusing jargon, no boring lectures. From how money is created to why demand, supply, and expectations matter, you'll finally see how inflation quietly affects your daily life and your future. Today, we will talk about what really causes inflation. Explained clearly. So, before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. Understanding inflation basics. Inflation is one of the most talked about economic concepts, yet it remains widely misunderstood. At its core, inflation refers to the general rise in prices of goods and services over time, which reduces the purchasing power of money. This means that with the same amount of money, consumers can buy fewer items than before. Inflation is not inherently bad. In fact, moderate inflation is considered a sign of a growing economy. Problems arise when inflation becomes too high, too fast, or unpredictable. Governments, economists, and central banks closely monitor inflation because it directly affects wages, savings, investments, and daily living costs. When inflation rises, households feel pressure as essentials like food, fuel, and housing become more expensive. Understanding what truly causes inflation helps people make sense of economic headlines and personal financial challenges. Inflation does not come from a single source. Instead, it is the result of multiple forces interacting within an economy. These forces can originate from consumer behavior, government policy, global events, or production systems. To truly understand inflation, it is important to explore these causes one by one and see how they combine to influence prices across the economy. 2. Demand-pull inflation. One of the most common causes of inflation is demand-pull inflation. This occurs when demand for goods and services exceeds the economy's ability to produce them. When consumers have more money to spend, due to higher wages, tax cuts, or government stimulus, they tend to buy more. If businesses cannot increase production quickly enough, shortages occur. As a result, companies raise prices because customers are willing to pay more. Demand-pull inflation often happens during periods of strong economic growth, when employment is high and consumer confidence is strong. While this type of inflation reflects a healthy economy, it can become problematic if demand grows too fast. Governments sometimes unintentionally fuel demand-pull inflation by injecting large amounts of money into the economy. When too much money chases too few goods, prices rise. This situation became evident in many countries after large stimulus programs during economic crises. Demand-pull inflation highlights how consumer behavior and economic expansion can directly influence price levels across markets. 3. Cost-push inflation. Cost-push inflation occurs when the cost of production increases, forcing businesses to raise prices to maintain profitability. This type of inflation is driven by rising input costs such as raw materials, labor, energy, or transportation. For example, if oil prices increase, the cost of manufacturing and shipping goods also rises. Businesses pass these higher costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Wage increases can also contribute to cost-push inflation, especially if wages rise faster than productivity. While higher wages benefit workers, they can increase business expenses. Supply chain disruptions, natural disasters, and geopolitical conflicts often trigger cost-push inflation by limiting supply or increasing costs. Unlike demand-pull inflation, cost-push inflation can occur even when demand is weak. This makes it particularly challenging for policymakers, as raising interest rates may reduce demand but does not directly lower production costs. Cost-push inflation demonstrates how external pressures and rising expenses ripple through the economy. 4. Role of money supply. The supply of money in an economy plays a crucial role in inflation. When central banks increase the money supply too rapidly, inflation can follow. This is based on the principle that if more money circulates without a corresponding increase in goods and services, prices will rise. Central banks control money supply through tools such as interest rates, bond purchases, and lending policies. Low interest rates encourage borrowing and spending, which can stimulate economic growth but also increase inflation risk. Excessive money creation can reduce the value of currency, leading to higher prices for imports and domestic goods. Historical examples show that uncontrolled money printing often leads to severe inflation or even hyperinflation. However, managing money supply is a delicate balance. Too little money can slow economic growth, while too much can destabilize prices. The relationship between money supply and inflation underscores the importance of responsible monetary policy. 5. Government spending and fiscal policy. Government spending and fiscal policy significantly influence inflation. When governments spend more than they collect in taxes, they run budget deficits. To finance these deficits, governments may borrow or rely on central banks to create money. Increased government spending can boost demand in the economy, potentially leading to inflation if production cannot keep up. Large public projects, welfare programs, and military spending all inject money into the economy. While such spending can stimulate growth and support citizens, excessive or poorly timed spending can overheat the economy. Fiscal policy decisions, such as tax cuts or subsidies, also affect consumer spending power. During economic downturns, expansionary fiscal policy may be necessary, but prolonged stimulus can contribute to rising prices. Government actions therefore play a dual role, supporting economic stability while also carrying inflationary risks, if not carefully managed. 6. Supply chain disruptions. Modern economies rely on complex global supply chains. When these supply chains are disrupted, inflationary pressures often follow. Events such as pandemics, wars, trade restrictions, or natural disasters can interrupt production and transportation. When goods become scarce, prices rise. Supply chain disruptions increase costs for manufacturers and delay deliveries, reducing overall supply. For example, shortages of computer chips affected industries ranging from electronics to automobiles, driving up prices. These disruptions can persist longer than expected, making inflation more difficult to control. Businesses may also increase prices preemptively in anticipation of future shortages. Supply chain issues reveal how interconnected the global economy has become and how vulnerable prices are to disruptions. Addressing these challenges requires long-term investments in infrastructure, diversification of suppliers, and resilient logistics systems. 7. Inflation expectations. Inflation expectations play a powerful role in shaping actual inflation. When consumers and businesses expect prices to rise, they adjust their behavior accordingly. Workers may demand higher wages to keep up with anticipated cost increases. Businesses may raise prices in advance to protect profits. This creates a self-fulfilling cycle where expectations alone contribute to inflation. Central banks pay close attention to inflation expectations because managing them is key to maintaining price stability. Clear communication and credible policies help anchor expectations. If people trust that inflation will remain under control, they are less likely to engage in inflationary behavior. However, once expectations become unanchored, inflation can accelerate rapidly. This psychological aspect of inflation highlights that it is not just an economic phenomenon, but also a behavioral one influenced by confidence and perception. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up. Leave a comment and click the button to subscribe.